Are you ready to take your taste buds on a journey to Japan? With TokyoTreat, you can experience the most exciting and exclusive Japanese snacks delivered straight to your door every month. Each TokyoTreat box is packed with full-size authentic treats like Japan's famous limited edition Kit Kats, Hokkaido smoked butter chips, and even seasonal sodas that are only available for a limited time. What makes TokyoTreat even better? Every month there's a unique theme, keeping things fresh and fun. This month's theme, New Year's Treatings, celebrates the holiday season with snacks and drinks like matcha ole and butter seaweed and salt peanuts, capturing the magic of Japanese New Year. One of my favorite things is the variety. Every box seems to come with something for every craving. I'm obsessed with the Kit Kats, they're always a standout, and the Ghana Shitori Moist Cake Chocolate Truffles were a total hit too. Whether you're into sweet or savory, or something in between, TokyoTreat has you covered. So why not treat yourself, or share the joy with friends and family? It's the perfect way to bring the magic of Japan to your home. Ready to get started? Well, click the links below, and don't forget to use my code JNightmares for a special discount. Don't wait, this month's New Year's Treating box is only available for a limited time. Unbox the taste of Japan with TokyoTreat. If you're craving a deeper dive into Japanese culture, Sakuraco is the perfect choice. This artisan snack box features 20 handcrafted delights made by local Japanese makers. Paired with premium teas and a unique piece of tableware each month, the Oshogatsu box celebrates the Japanese New Year with snacks symbolizing hope, luck, and prosperity. Like the New Year's senbei, pair these with the refreshing yuzu sencha tea and enjoy the beauty of Japanese traditions. Speaking of tea, this month's tableware item is the gorgeous Nishijin Ori coaster, a traditional fabric piece that adds an authentic touch to your tea time. Let me tell you about my favorites from this month's box. The yuzu shiroko biscuits are absolutely divine. They're sweet, delicate treats with a layer of adzuki paste that's both nostalgic and indulgent. And the soft Niigata okaki, it's a savory delight, coated in a rich soy sauce glaze that's impossible to resist. Every Sakuraco and TokyoTreat box comes with a beautifully designed booklet detailing each snack, sharing allergen information, and exploring Japan's rich culture. It's like having a guide to Japan right in your hands. So why not treat yourself? Or share the joy with loved ones? Whether you choose TokyoTreat or Sakuraco, or both, these boxes are the perfect way to celebrate Japan's magic from the comfort of your home. Don't forget to click the links below and use my code JNightmares for an exclusive discount. Unbox the flavors of Japan today. Thanks to both Sakuraco and TokyoTreat for sponsoring this video. As we welcome the new year and savor the beauty of Japanese traditions through these amazing snacks, let's take a darker turn into the mysteries of Japan. Shrines are sacred places connecting the human world to the divine, especially significant during the new year for prayers of health and prosperity. But they also hold an eerie side. Haunted shrines are central to Japanese folklore, said to house vengeful spirits and unexplained phenomena. For thrill seekers, shrines are popular for kimodamashi, tests of courage where teens challenge each other to brave these places at night, and rituals like Ushi no Kokimairi, performed to summon spirits for revenge, add to their chilling reputation. Join me as we explore spine-tingling tales of haunted shrines and uncover the secrets hiding within these sacred places. This story surfaced online and was submitted by Tamamo, a woman in her late 30s working as a company employee. Location, a city in Saitama Prefecture, near the train tracks. Hi, Jay here. I used to live in Saitama, and this place kind of sounds familiar, so I'll leave a link to a Google map in the description, just so you can have a little look around, try to contextualize it. Anyway, here's the story. This happened when I was in my late 20s. living alone in a small apartment in Saitama Prefecture. At the time, I was dedicated to jogging every night after work. My goal? To shed some weight. Honestly, I've never been a fan of running, so I knew that skipping even one day could snowball into giving up entirely. So rain or shine, even on late nights after overtime, I forced myself to hit the pavement around my quiet neighborhood. The area was a peaceful residential district with few cars on the road. Near my apartment, train tracks ran parallel to a narrow road lined with streetlights. That road became my regular jogging route. A straight path, easy to follow and well lit. Every night, it was the same scenery. The tracks, the occasional train passing by, the faint hum of streetlights. I'd grown so used to it that I could almost run with my eyes closed. But that night was different. It was close to 11 p.m. Work had dragged on, and I started my jog later than usual. Despite the late hour, I stuck to my routine, even though I really didn't want to. It was cold, I was tired and hungry. If ever there was a night to ditch the running, it was that night. I wish I listened to that voice inside me asking me to skip it. Had I done so, I wouldn't be here sharing this story with you now. So anyway, off I went, determined to stick to my routine and shed that weight. At one point, I crossed a small pedestrian-level train crossing to switch to the other side of the railway tracks. There was something calming about switching up the scenery, even if just slightly. As I jogged back towards the crossing on my return leg, I heard the familiar dinging sound of the crossing gates lowering. The barriers descended slowly as the warning bells echoed in the quiet night, so I stopped there waiting for the train to pass. Under the cold blue glow of the crossing's lights, I stretched my calves. Across the tracks, I could see familiar sights, and behind me, a small cemetery and a shrine tucked into a dense cluster of trees. I had seen it countless times before. It never struck me as creepy, just another piece of the nightly backdrop. But standing there that night, I felt a strange sensation prickling at the edge of my awareness. It looked very shadowy and just plain off-putting. I don't know if it was the lack of moonlight or my own sense of irritation for being out on a run when I didn't really feel like it, but something felt a little different that night, and I felt a little scared. The train roared past, its wind whipping at my face, but the chill that ran down my spine wasn't from the train. It was from something else, something colder, something unnatural. I froze. My body, hot and sweaty from running, suddenly felt icy cold. A shiver coursed through me, and fear gripped my chest. I didn't understand it at first. There was nothing here, no sound except from the train fading into the distance, but every fiber of my being screamed at me. Don't turn around. Don't look at the shrine. The thought came unbidden, loud and clear. My eyes stayed glued to the ground ahead, refusing to betray the instinct that had taken hold. Why? No idea. The barrier lifted, signaling the all clear, but I couldn't bring myself to move. My heart pounded, my breath quickened, and the overwhelming urge to run consumed me. And so I ran. I dashed across the tracks without looking back, through the streets, straight to my apartment. I slammed the door behind me, locked it, and collapsed against it, gasping for air. My body trembled. It felt like I'd been running for miles, and the cold sweat clinging to my skin felt like it would never dry. After a hot shower, I went shivering as I crawled into bed. The memory of that overwhelming fear lingered. What was it about that shrine? Why did I feel so strongly that I couldn't look at it? Eventually, exhaustion won, and I drifted into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, I awoke to sunlight through my curtains. The events of last night felt like a bad dream that I was eager to forget. Shaking it off, I got ready for work. At the office, the usual morning chatter among the part-time clerks caught my ear as I entered the kitchen area. I noticed them talking in hushed tones intently. "Did you hear about the shrine by the crossing?" one of them asked, lowering her voice. My heart skipped a beat. "Apparently someone hanged themselves there last night. A homeless man. They found him this morning in the trees." The words hit me like a gut punch. The shrine. The thicket. I barely managed to stay composed as I listened to the details. According to her, the man had used a rope to hang himself from one of the shrine's trees. He'd been discovered early that morning cold. Cold. That word made me shudder. Suddenly, everything from the previous night came rushing back. The inexplicable fear, the cold, the voice in my mind telling me not to look. Was that his presence I felt? Was he trying to warn me? Or was it his despair lingering in the air? A chilling thought crept into my mind. What if he was still alive at that moment? What if, as he hung there, he saw me and hoped, beyond all hope, that I would notice him? Did he plead silently for me to help, only to watch me run away? I don't know. I'll never know. Honestly, I don't want to know. But the possibilities torture me. Because if I had turned around and seen him, I don't think I would have been able to forget it. Even now, years later, the memory of that night lingers in the back of my mind, like a shadow I can't fully escape. I still wonder, did he feel abandoned in those final moments? Did he curse me for running away? I truly hope not. This is a story from my childhood that still gives me chills. Want to hear it? Let me set the stage for you. I'm 24 now, a guy, but this happened when I was about 6 or 7. I grew up in a children's care facility until I was 11. It wasn't the easiest start in life, but we made do. The place had its traditions. One of them was the Little Explorer field trip, where younger kids, those between 4 and 7, would go on these outings to parks, zoos, or other fun places. This particular trip was to a huge park with a forest and a pond. I remember it vividly because it wasn't just any trip. It's the day something happened that I'll never forget. I was with 2 others, Sayuri-chan, a girl about my age who'd been at the facility as long as I had, and Itsuki-kun, a younger boy who was on his first ever trip. The 3 of us were grouped together since we were the only little kids there that day. The older kids didn't come on these types of trips. At first it was pretty normal. Sayuri-chan and I were used to these kind of field trips. We'd been to this park countless times. Honestly, we were a bit bored of it. But Itsuki-kun was practically bouncing around with excitement, his little face lighting up at every new thing. He kept asking us questions. "Have you been here before, Tatsunie?" That was what the younger kids called us older ones. Also, my name is Tatsuya. "Yeah, lots of times," I said, trying my best to look cool. Our caretaker, a staff member from the facility, encouraged us to explore while she kept an eye on us from distance. "Go on, take Itsuki-kun on an adventure," she said with a smile. And so we did. The park was beautiful, with thick trees and a quiet pond in the middle. As we wandered, we stumbled upon something we hadn't expected. A torii, a traditional Shinto gate, standing alone in the woods. Beyond it looked to be an old shrine, overgrown and forgotten. Sayuri-chan and I had been here before and thought nothing of it, but the moment we stepped through the torii, Itsuki-kun froze. "I don't want to," he screamed, dropping to the ground and bursting into tears. "What's wrong?" I asked, crouching down beside him. Through his sobs, he pointed past me. "There's a black shadow behind you. He just appeared out of nowhere. It's scary." Sayuri-chan and I spun around. Our hearts were pounding, but there was nothing there. Nothing but trees and the stillness of the woods. Itsuki-kun's panic was contagious, though. The 3 of us bolted, running blindly through the forest. The strange thing was, even though Sayuri-chan and I had been there many times before, we couldn't find our way back. The trees felt like they were closing in on us, the paths twisting and unfamiliar. At some point, I got separated from them, alone, scared and worried about the both of them, and completely lost. I started to cry. I felt like I let them down, and I felt stupid for getting myself lost. A man emerged from the trees, walking towards me. I realized in an instant that who I was looking at was the one who had upset Itsuki-kun so badly. His whole figure was shadowy, like he was made of darkness itself, yet something about him felt oddly comforting at first. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice soft, calm. "Yeah," I replied. He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Come with me. I'll take you back to your friends." Without thinking, I reached for his hand. The moment our hands touched, I heard voices calling out my name. "Tatsuya, Tatsuya." It was Sayuri-chan and the caretaker. I turned to look, relief washing over me. "They found me," I said, letting go of his hand. But when I turned back to thank him, my stomach dropped. The man was no longer there, and in his place was something else, a shadowy figure with no discernible features, its form shifting and flickering like smoke. And then I realized something even worse. I wasn't where I thought I was. I'd somehow ended up on the other side of a tall, barbed wire fence meant to keep people out or in. It was far too high for a child to climb, and the wire was sharp and rusted, yet here I was, standing on the other side completely unharmed. My caretaker's voice was frantic as she climbed the fence to reach me. "How did you get over there?" she shouted. I didn't know what to say. When they finally got me back to safety, I tried to explain about the man, the black figure, and how it led me there, but no one believed me, except Sayuri-chan. "I think I've seen him before too," she admitted quietly. "On another trip, he tried to hold my hand, but you, Tatsuni, called my name, and I snapped out of it." We never talked about it again. Even now I wonder who or what was that man. Why did he want to take me deeper into the forest? Was he the same black figure Itsuki-kun saw? Sometimes, when I walk through quiet parks or woods, I feel like I'm being watched. And I wonder if he's still out there, waiting for another lost child to take by the hand. About 15 years ago, I went to Kamakura with my girlfriend to celebrate New Year's. After finishing our first shrine visit, we decided to wander around and explore various shrines and temples. I can't remember the name of the shrine we ended up at, but it was eerily quiet, and there weren't many people around. As we were walking around, we came across a few small circular ponds inside the shrine grounds. At one of them, my girlfriend suddenly seemed drawn to it, almost as if something was pulling her towards it. She stood there staring at the pond, completely still. It was a deep pond, and it was very still too. I asked her, "What's wrong? What are you looking at?" She replied, her voice a little bit shaky, "I heard a man groaning coming from the direction of the pond." And it was just a very weird thing for her to throw out there. I do have to say though, the vibe fell off, so we quickly decided to leave the shrine. It wasn't until later, on the train ride back, that things really started to go downhill. She began to complain of headaches, first mild, then unbearable. There were nights she couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in bed, muttering about someone watching her. I tried to comfort her, but the way her eyes would dart around the room, as if she was hearing things, made me question whether I was helpful at all. At this point, I have to point out that this was incredibly out of character. I even thought it could have been a prank. She had never acted that way before. I couldn't get my head around it. Then I thought she was just exhausted, maybe stressed out, but the weirdness escalated. One night, not too long into the new year, she came over to my place. She told me that the man was following her. She said she saw him peeking into her window, standing outside just staring. She showed me a photo of her apartment that she had taken earlier, and in it there was a face, a man's face. When she showed me the photo, I thought I was seeing things. The image was blurry with distortion at the sides, but when I looked closer, you could really see the face. It wasn't her face, nor mine, but a man's face, barely visible, staring through the window, and yet nobody was supposed to be there. She'd never seen him before, but there he was, his face clear as day in the picture. Honestly, looking at it made me feel as if I was being watched. I really wish I had that picture to share with you, but you'll know why I don't by the end of this. From there on, things only got worse. More strange occurrences followed. Noises in her apartment when she was alone, shadows moving. She started to see the man, in flashes, out of the corner of her eye. She was terrified. I tried to help her, but I didn't know how. She would cry, telling me that the man is still following her, still watching. I tried to comfort her, but it felt like she was slipping away, like something was taking hold of her. In the end, I couldn't handle it anymore, and I ended things between us, thinking it would somehow stop if I wasn't around. But even now, years later, I regret that choice, and I still worry about her. I haven't heard from her since, but sometimes I wonder if she still hears him, or sees him. Every time I close my eyes, I can almost hear the echo of her voice, still shaken, saying, "He's still here, watching." And I wonder if it was just her mind playing tricks on her, or did something truly follow her back from that shrine, something I could never fully explain. I hope she got herself cleansed. I hope she went back to that shrine to speak to the Shinto priest for help. Hi, Jay here. Before I jump into the story, let me take a moment to explain something that's important for understanding part of this tale. Kotoribako. If you've heard of this before, stay with me as a refresher perhaps. Kotoribako, literally bird box, is a term from Japanese urban legends, referring to a cursed box with a sinister and supernatural backstory. It is often associated with revenge, malice, and tragedy, designed to bring harm or death to specific individuals. The origins of Kotoribako are murky, steeped in folklore and horror. According to legend, these boxes were created during times of social unrest or personal vendettas. The primary purpose of a Kotoribako was to curse someone for reasons tied to revenge or to satisfy deep-seated grudges. The process of creating such a box is pretty dark. Sometimes they are imbued with malicious spirits or contain objects tied to pain or death, such as human remains, hair, or nails. The cursed energy inside the box grows over time, intensifying its power. The curse is activated when someone interacts with the box, usually by opening it. Opening the box is said to unleash the curse, bringing misfortune, illness, or even death to the person and possibly those around them. Now, with that in mind, here's the story. This happened around 8 years ago, when I was still working part-time with a few guys from my job. We'd just wrapped up a hike through the dense, mysterious Aokigahara forest near Mount Fuji, the so-called Sea of Trees. If you've heard of it, its reputation, you'll know what it's famous for. It's a place that feels like the kind of setting you'd expect in a horror film. Quiet, unnervingly still. The trees are like towers and the absence of sound is really hard to get used to. When we were driving back, we noticed a dilapidated shrine off the side of the road. It didn't look like much, probably hadn't been maintained in decades, with weeds growing up and down the base of the stone steps. and the torii gate hanging at an odd angle. There was no sign of life there, fitting for Aokigahara. We were tired from the hike and just wanted to kill some time, so we decided to check it out. Walking inside, there was something weird about it. The air felt heavy. The place looked abandoned, forgotten. But then, near the center of the shrine grounds, we saw something odd. A box. It was about the length of a magazine, and it looked strange, sitting there, all alone in the middle of the overgrown courtyard. My senior coworker, who was a bit of a jokester, nudged me and said, "Why not open it? You never know what's inside." So I did. Inside the box, I found a smaller box. This one looked worn out, old, fragile. I hesitated for a moment, but my coworker insisted, so I opened it. And inside that box, yet a smaller box. This kept happening over and over, with each box getting smaller and smaller. It felt like an endless cycle. But I couldn't stop. I had to see it through. As I opened the 6th or 7th box, I finally reached one that was red, about the size of a cigarette pack. I felt this strange sense of dread as I touched it. The moment I opened the red box, though I wish I hadn't. There was something inside it, something that looked almost alive, but was barely recognizable. It was strange. It looked like a larva at first, but when I looked closer, it almost looked like a human finger, twisting and bent in ways it shouldn't be. I didn't know what it was. My heart raced. I felt a sharp chill run through me. I could hear my coworker's voice in the background, encouraging me to keep going, but I couldn't. My hands suddenly felt cold and my breath was shallow. We left immediately. We didn't say much as we walked back to the car, and I think we were all silently relieved just to get out of that place. That heavy, suffocating air seemed to follow us as we drove away, but we never spoke about it again. I tried to push the whole thing to the back of my mind. After all, it was probably nothing. Just an old, weird shrine. Maybe some kids left a prank box there like that to scare people. And if they did, well done, you got one over on me. But for the next few days, strange things started to happen. At first it was small stuff. My coworker, the one who had dared me to open the box, started acting off. He seemed distracted, agitated, like he was seeing something that wasn't there. I chalked it up to stress. His workload was pretty hectic. But then, a week later, he got into a serious car accident. It happened on the Meishin Expressway of all places. It was a bad crash. One that could have easily killed him, but somehow he survived, but it was close. I couldn't help but think back to that moment at the shrine, to the red box and the thing inside it. Was this connected? Could it be? Was it some kind of curse that followed him after we left that place? I never spoke to him about it. I didn't want to sound like I was crazy. But I've always wondered if that box was more than just an odd relic. Could it have been some kind of Kotoribako, a cursed object designed to bring misfortune to whoever opens it? Maybe the accident wasn't just a coincidence. Maybe something darker followed him that day. What's even stranger is I haven't even heard from him since. It's been years now and I still think about that shrine, that box, that thing inside it, alive, twisted, and waiting. I haven't been able to shake the feeling that something followed us from that place. And if that happened to my friend, what's waiting for me? After all, I'm the one who opened the damn box. I've been silently praying at shrines that it was all nothing but a coincidence. Hi, Jay here. There were a few comments back and forth on this one. It is speculated that the shrine in question is the Fujiyoshida Sengen Shrine. I've linked it in the description if you want to check it out. This happened when I went to visit my grandparents after a long time away. As part of the visit, I decided to take my nephew to a local shrine that I used to play at when I was a kid. The shrine held so many fond memories for me, and I thought it would be a fun place for him to explore. My friends and I used to play there all the time. When we arrived, the shrine felt smaller than I remembered, but close by was the same playground I used to play in. It still had the same old equipment. It was a bit surreal to see it all unchanged, almost like stepping back in time. The swings, the slide, it was all just like I left it. Even the sandbox had a small group of elementary school kids playing in it. It all felt kind of nostalgic. My nephew ran straight towards the slide, climbing and sliding down repeatedly. I was in awe of his energy levels. Watching him, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of unease, though. I brushed it off as nostalgia mixed with the oddity of revisiting childhood places. "Let's try the swings next," my nephew shouted, pulling me by the hand. I pushed him, he giggled, and it made me smile, but still something wasn't right. I couldn't put my finger on it. As I scanned the area, the shrine grounds beyond the playground looked as they always had. The sandbox kids were busy with their play. The shrine itself stood quietly in the background, its presence timeless. Then I even remembered something my friend group used to do. We would take turns crawling underneath the shrine's floor. It was an old shrine, you see, and due to weather damage, we found a way to kind of go right underneath it. Thinking back on that now, it was really dumb and dangerous. I could have got stuck, bitten by something, who knows. And then it hit me. What was making me feel as if something was off? It wasn't what I was seeing, it was what I wasn't hearing. The kids in the sandbox hadn't made a single sound. No laughter, no chatter, not even the rustle of sand. How had I not noticed? I turned to look at them more closely. The 5 children were crouched in a circle, each silently focused on the mound of sand in front of them. Their hands moved methodically, almost mechanically, building and shaping the little hills. Something was sticking out on top of each mound. Curiosity got the better of me. As my nephew naturally headed towards the sandbox, I decided to approach with him. "Hi there," I called out. One of the boys turned towards me and gave a polite, "Oh, hello," before prompting the others to echo his greeting. "You playing a game?" I asked, crouching down to see the mounds of sand more closely. "Oh, is this some version of Bo Taoshi?" I guessed, referencing a kind of capture-the-flag style game. 2 teams vie for control of the oppositions. In Bo Taoshi, it's not a flag though, it's a pole. FYI. The boy nodded, but didn't say much. As I got closer, I noticed that the stick sticking out of one of the mounds wasn't a stick. It was thick, white, and slightly uneven, almost like a piece of chalk, but something about its texture looked wrong. "What's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, it's a bone," the boy replied matter-of-factly. My breath caught. A bone? Not a chicken bone, something you might find discarded after a meal. This was clean, unnaturally white, as if it had been burned at a high temperature. It sent a chill through me. "What kind of bone is it?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. The boy didn't reply. Instead, he just pointed towards the shrine. "They're from under there," he said, turning to my nephew. "You want one?" I froze. My mind was racing. My nephew didn't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation, but I did, so he reached out for one. Those bones weren't something a child should be casually digging up, let alone playing with. It freaked me out, and I knew we needed to leave. Without saying much else, I scooped up my nephew, muttered a hasty goodbye, and left the shrine as quickly as I could. Even now, I regret not staying to understand what I had seen. What were those bones? Did they come from beneath the shrine? Were those kids going under there like we used to? Were they part of an old burial or something darker? And why would these kids want to play with them? So many questions. No answers. Whatever the truth, I haven't gone back to that shrine, and I don't think I ever will. After exploring some unsettling shrine stories, I want to shift the tone a little. The next story still carries the weight of hardship and fear, but ends on a more hopeful note, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light can find its way back into our lives. If you've been with my channel for a while, you might have heard this one. It's a story I shared back in 2021, but if you haven't, or you'd just like to revisit it, stick around. And while you're here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. Your support helps keep these tales alive and allows me to make more of them and keep bringing them to you. Now let's dive into life at the shrine. I want to tell you a couple of stories about when I used to live on the streets as a homeless man. It was hell living on the streets. The stares, the looks of disgust were nothing compared to the violence I endured. I got into an altercation with some guys one night in a park in Tokyo, and I was beaten to within an inch of my life. I had to get out of the area, as I thought they would be back. I remember moving from place to place, and it was all a bit of a blur. Somehow I ended up way up in the sticks, close to the mountains, and eventually I ended up living in an abandoned shrine. It wasn't so bad. I would walk down to the village and exchange my labor for food. You might think that living in an abandoned shrine might be scary, but I can tell you that there was only one thing I was scared of at the time: people. I would offer my services to anyone who had any work available. I like to think of myself as a jack of all trades, an all-rounder. I would often go and ask people on the street, or go door to door trying to drum up some work. One guy asked me what services I could offer. "Pretty much anything," I said with a smile, and then he pulled a gun out, cocked the trigger, and put it against my head. "It's loaded," he said. You can imagine how I felt, right? He put the gun away and said, "I just wanted to point a loaded gun at a human," and then he threw some money my way and left. I guess the cash he threw was what he determined the value of my life to be. Not long after that, a gang found out where I'd been living, and they came late one night. When they found me, one said a phrase so off-putting, I don't think I'll ever forget it. "You have no human rights." They already dehumanized me. They carried sticks, iron bars, metal pipes, and they came at me. It was too late to escape, and when they were through, I was left with a broken leg. It was hell. At the same time I experienced such a lack of humanity, I also experienced the opposite. A farmer I had worked for in the village brought me food when he'd heard about the gang attack, and even paid for my hospital bills. If it wasn't for him, I probably would have never been found, and I might have starved to death in my makeshift home. There was no way I could have gotten down the mountain to the village with a broken leg. I owed that man my life, and I asked if there was any way I could repay him, and he just replied, Hell, why don't you try and grow some vegetables or something, make yourself a living, get back on your feet and pay me back when you got set up. There's no rush." I learned a lot about agricultural work from him. Even when he gave me a method to repay his generosity, I felt like I was still getting more than I was giving. The soil by the shrine was hard and nothing much would grow, but I was determined to pay him back. I would go to the river countless times a day to fetch water, no matter how long it took me with my healing leg. Eventually I made some serious progress. This joy was short-lived though. A group of people who were into urban exploration came to the abandoned shrine and trashed my little farm. They stomped all over my plants. Why? I had nothing, yet people still wanted to take from me. Something snapped in me. I felt robbed and I wanted someone to pay for it. I kept a 2x4 with me at all times from then on, and I decided to be ready for whoever wanted to mess with me. Living that way made me happy. Fight or flight, a return to animal instincts. I knew that all humans were capable of terrible acts, and I grew less trusting in them. I was always scared of spirits and ghosts, but humans are worse. It was at this point I started seeing things. I thought the shrine was haunted. I decided that if there was something else with me in the shrine, I wanted to be of service to the shrine since the farm wasn't working. I had learned some carpentry skills when I was younger. I thought I would try and clean up the place and mend a few things, Maybe if the shrine looked a bit more maintained, then it could keep away the urban explorers and the gangs. Being busy took my mind off my hate for those who sought to hurt me. I started to speak to God or whatever the spirits that inhabited the shrine were. I would say hello and goodbye, simple things at first, to myself and then quietly. But in the end I was talking aloud, like someone was with me. Eventually the shrine looked pretty good. I started to see a ghost. She was a beautiful woman, and she was so pleased that I had cleaned up the shrine. She would just sit there and comb her gorgeous hair. Sometimes I wouldn't even see her. I would just hear rummaging noises. I thought I was going mad, but it felt so natural. I felt like I had some company, and I really enjoyed having company. The gang came back one night though, the same gang that attacked me and broke my leg. They laughed at me when I called out for help, when I called to her, but they weren't laughing when my friend, who owned the farm, arrived with his hunting rifle. They never came back after that. Since he saved me a second time, I decided to stop being so hateful, and I put that energy into agriculture. I still needed to pay him back, even though he wasn't expecting anything from me. I was determined though, and through years of hard work, dedication, and support from my friend, I managed to hone my skills. I found some land to rent, used it, did well, and I kept repeating. Now I own several plots, and I have several employees. I usually offer work to those who were in the same position as me, the homeless. As for my friend, the farmer who taught me so much, I paid him back. I made sure of it. I bought him several plots of land by the mountains. Finding a partner hasn't really worked out for me, but whenever I'm down, I seem to dream about the spirit of the woman in the shrine. Sometimes I think I was rescued by someone other than my farmer friend. So my next project is restoring the shrine to its former glory and reinstating a priest there. Thank you for listening to this story. If this one or any of the others resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out other videos on my channel for more tales like this. Until next time, take care. I'll see you soon.